It's great that they abolished the chronic offender program, since most people are not offenders, let alone chronic. But why are they fighting so hard for this place-based policing? And I'll tell you why. It's because there are people in the city who demand aggressive, suppressive policing. It's the people who want to turn Venice into Malibu, the people who want to turn downtown LA and Skid Row into San Francisco. It's the people who want to turn Crenshaw to do the Crenshaw what they've done to Washington, D.C. and Harlem, which is turn them white. It's the people who want to, in areas of hot anti-colonial and class struggle like Boyle Heights and Highland Park, they want the police to displace not crime, but the people who live there now. Because they want to charge $3,000 or $3,500 for one-bedroom apartment like you do in San Francisco.
Correct.
And that's what's going on.
Correct.
This is not about crime suppression. This is about transforming the city of Los Angeles into somebody's dream and somebody's nightmare. So let's talk about that reality. This is the reason they can't justify what they're doing and can't find the data to back it up is because it's not about data. They changed the name. They used to say it's data-driven, evidence-based policing, but identifying so-called chronic offenders is not about evidence. It's about what kind of city you want to live in and who's going to live in it. So the reason you have this outrage is not because these people have an axe to grind. These are the people who are suffering from aggressive, suppressive policing. They're from the communities that are being driven out of the city. You want to displace not crime, you want to displace these people to Palmdale and Barstow and Las Vegas because they can't live in Los Angeles anymore. And that's not the city I want to live in, but I think you represent the class of people who do.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that no public education follows through the issues of mental health under Penal Code 422, which is a criminal threat. See, criminalizing people in their community and asking them to leave immediately is a criminal threat in itself. And you continue to tell Mike Fuhrer, the fucking racist attorney from the city at 213-978-8100. If you call, you can make a claim under 91.5A, fuck the police. So I, just being a little UC rat, and know about Robert Kane and his child molestation, I have mythologies too. Step one is A, you're wrong. Step B, you're still wrong. And in addition to that, not to do, as you said in quote, Mr. Sober Up, not to do. Yes, data, fair, rational, and trust. Oh, I'm sorry. That was you, Mr. Michael Moore. Remember back in 2012 when you kicked me out of my community because you called me out on the penal code and retaliation, and now I'm fucking living in the street based on the conditions of the first speaker. You fucking assholes are son of a bitches, motherfuckers.
Off topic. This isn't about you.
This is about
what the...
no submission. No submission because in the report, motherfuckers, in the report...
Next speaker, please. Next speaker.
Gina Viola.
Next speaker, please.
Laser program.
Nazi-fascist
Gina
America.
Viola.
And then after that...
Speaker's disrupting the meeting.
You're disrupting the meeting.
You didn't give him his time.
The next speaker is Gina Viola, followed by Jerry Dietrich, Zach Sherwin, and Tiff Guerra.
Okay.
Sober off, you just violated your own promise. You said they wouldn't, wouldn't give you your comment.
Sir,
You just did it.
what, do you have a card in, sir?
Let me take a look.
Where's my card?
Since your report, atrociously call an audit, failed to mention the harm that these programs have caused to the community, I'm going to cite some of that for you now. June of 2016, Gang Enforcement Division officers stopped a car in the 77th Street area laser zone as a person in the car was wearing a white, Black Sox baseball cap on what the DA's report described as Hood Day. During the stop, the officer killed Keith Bursey, a 31-year-old black man, shooting him once in the chest
and twice in the back. Later that year, October 2016, another officer was conducting pedestrian and vehicular code enforcement in a high-crime area per crime suppression assignment in the 77th Street area. Officers passed a car containing 18-year-old black youth, Carnell Snell Jr., and initiated a chase after he looked in their direction, appeared startled, and then leaned forward towards the front passenger seat. The officer shot Snell by shooting him in the back. Later still, that same year, December of 2016, Metro officer was patrolling a known gang area in an unmarked car, assigned to a crime suppression detail in the 77th Street area. Officers passed Ryan Joseph, a 20-year-old black man, and initiated a stop that ended when the officer killed Joseph by shooting him twice in the middle of his back. Now I ask you this, if any of those people killed were white, would you shut these programs down then? Because I think that you would. I definitely think that you would. Your comments about preventing crime. You do not prevent crime. You just don't. You just can't. Only healthy communities can prevent crime. And you are keeping communities with your budget. Shut it down.
Hi, my name is Jerry Dietrich. I'm with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. When I entered the room today to declare my disdain for these programs, Predpol and Laser, but according to your agenda, you only are going to either approve the IG report, review the IG report, or approve the department's report. So I don't know. Anyhow, all the same, I just want to say, I want you to disband these expensive, ineffective, and unwelcome programs. As you've been told numerous times, no one in the LA community wants them to continue. See, I have 4 times, so I'm going to comment on all these wonderful discussions I've heard today. The first thing, Chief Moore, your precision policing, I see this as something new in name only that will take the community another 2 years to disband, and will be renamed something else that we don't want. And Commissioner Goldstein, you commented, I like some of your comments, and what's interesting is that since we have such limited info, and I agree with Decker also said about the limited info, and I am certain that the goal of the LAPD is to keep the commission in the dark as well as the community. The more we talk about transparency, the less transparent they will be.
Yep. All right.
Thank you, Zach Sherwin, followed by Tiff Guerra.
So I'll start by saying that the Inspector General very studiously avoided rendering any value judgment on the fact that over 99% of the responses had identical language. But just in case there is any insinuation that the fact that a lot of people cared to take the time to send an email, even if that email did have identical language, indicates that hundreds of people were involved in that. Even higher percentage of the language was identical in the remarks in support of these programs, which is 0. There was no language in any of them because they didn't exist. Chief Moore says that he wants programs that are fair and rational and that are going to build trust, recognize bias, identify community concerns, and then later you said this isn't doublespeak. Nobody even thought about doublespeak until you say, this isn't doublespeak. It's not a thing you say when you aren't practicing doublespeak. These are not the ways to achieve the goals you are articulating. These programs fill these areas with cops who are looking to racially profile folks who have already been criminalized despite not having done anything. Carnell Snell, who the previous speaker, Gina, mentioned, was seen looking suspiciously in a vehicle going in the opposite direction. It's not throwing out a baby with the bathwater, it's throwing out a turd with the bathwater. These programs don't deserve to be in existence. I'm sorry to laugh into that from top. Finally, in terms of building trust, Commissioner Soboroff, the snarling scorn and contempt that you display for the community members in the room, there's absolutely no chance that that does anything towards building trust in here. Do you want to get this meeting started or not? To Michael Novick, when he's asking about a procedural question on how to comment on the agenda, I can't imagine what it's like to exist inside yourself. And finally, that information we need, obviously that's in a quarterly report instead of keeping us from what we need to do. Clearly, your fellow commissioners do not necessarily agree with that opinion, and I don't think you should take it as... Yes.
So we see how LAPD is posturing here as being this police force that is very responsive to public criticism, and how, now that they know the program isn't working, they are responding by shutting down those parts that don't work and looking for something different and better.
Right.
But let's be clear that predictive policing and Operation Laser has been researched and explored within LAPD for over 10 years now. And what we know from your internal documents is that LAPD had copious reports regarding Operation Laser and how it was working and what was going on with it. There were daily, weekly, monthly, annual reports, hundreds of them. The issue isn't that the program wasn't being tracked and monitored. The issue is that LAPD was tracking the program, and they were just fine with how it was operating. And we understand why if we listen to a recent interview with Bill Bratton, who is the ex-chief here who implemented broken windows policing and predictive policing, and who is the person who began precision policing, which is what they are trying to move into next. And in this interview, we hear Bratton get complimented on what is referred to as his success here in LA. And specifically, what is referred to as how the downtown area has come back and is very prosperous now. And this is referred to as a positive effect of policing.
Yeah.
And it struck me when listening to this, that they are confirming something that we already know, and that is that with policing in these programs, the goal is not to actually reduce crime or to make communities more safe. The goal is redevelopment. And the goal is profit. And the goal is moving people out of their homes. And in moving families that live in those areas now out of their homes, that's what these programs do. That's what they allow LAPD and the city to do. And that's why the LAPD is okay with the programs working the way they are, because it was never a tool of crime reduction. It's a tool of displacement and of criminalization. And while you are focusing on taking away areas and property, it's the people that live there that you're harming. And we're not hearing any of you talking about that. You're harming families, you're harming communities, and we demand that you shut this shit down. We don't want your precision policing, we don't want your predictive policing, we don't...
Next speaker, please.
We're gonna shut it down.
Shut it down.
Paul, Mimi Soltysik, and Josh Mayer.
Morning.
We've been hearing a lot today about how predictive policing that's place-based or location-based is benign, and I want to talk against that. First of all, there's no such thing as place-based or location-based predictive policing. You're still targeting people in those places. Secondly, it's based off of crime data, which is based off of decades of racial profiling. Crime data is inherently racist. And place is also racist because here in LA, it's been violently segregated for generations. The hotspots you gave us also showed that with Predpol, you're effectively creating a quarantine around Skid Row by creating a constant presence of dense hotspots, which we've mapped based on, by the way, like around 8 of what we asked for in legally required PRAs. So, finally, what I would want to say is about all of this, you're offering us little ways to tinker with it and optimize with it. And what we're trying to say is that the very fundamental question you're asking, which is, who are the people that we're going to deem as suspicious? Where are the places that we want to apply violence? These are not questions that we want answered, no matter what the answer is. So what we want to say is no amount of tinkering and optimizing will give us an answer that we'll be satisfied with. Because at the basis of this is a colonial question of how to best suppress a colonized population. And we know this because Brantingham himself created this work based off studying insurgencies in U.S.-occupied Iraq and Afghanistan. So what we know is that what you're trying to do right here is apply the same exact tactic to dispossessed and deprived communities here in LA to manage violence and to apply violence yourselves instead of fighting against violence the way you're saying. So what we want and what we demand is, in addition to shutting this shit down, we want reparations for all the people harmed. And we know that all of you still have jobs afterwards, and if this department still exists, then the reparations were not large enough.
Yes.
Shut it down.
Next 3.
My name's Mimi. I'm with the Stop LAPD Spy Coalition.
The first thing I wanted to say is framing the community feedback as concerns is really disingenuous. What the community did was completely reject the program. These aren't concerns, they're rejecting the program. Also, it's rather remarkable. You had 819 responses and not one spoke out in favor of these programs. The community is completely unified in its opposition to the programs. You also got to know that many of these people are people who are concerned about giving their info when they sign this because they don't trust you, they don't trust the LAPD, yet they did it. If you aren't going to listen to those people, to the community who express their opposition, you have a lot more integrity if you just say fuck you to the community, because that's what you're doing. So, for once in your fucking lives, would you listen to the community and shut it down?
Shut it down!
Followed by Charlotte Neary Bremer, Akua Agian, and Jeremy Levinson.
Thank you. My name is Josh Mayer. I'm a PhD student in anthropology at UCLA, and I'm here as one of the signatories to the letter that Commissioner Bonner mentioned, which is designed to dispel the idea frequently mentioned by Chief Moore that there is widespread academic support for these programs that are being discussed today. So I'd like to read briefly from that letter. To the extent that Professor Jeffrey Brantingham and his UCLA colleagues represent an academic stamp of approval of predictive policing and other algorithm-based methods for Chief Moore, we wish to make it very clear there is not universal agreement or acceptance of the empirical merit and the ethics of their research at UCLA in anthropology as a discipline or in other disciplines. On the contrary, many anthropologists and other scholars who read his scholarship believe it represents some of the most troubling legacies of the discipline of anthropology and of social science more generally. Among our concerns, which we can share in more detail, are first, whether the research meets the ethical obligation outlined in our anthropological code of ethics to ensure our research does not harm our research subjects. And second, how the quantitative approach of the research naturalizes policies and practices that have had disparate impacts on Black and brown communities. If this police commission is interested in the position of the Academy, and UCLA anthropology in particular, on pedpol and predictive policing, we say plainly and adamantly, this research does not have our universal support. I think it's clear from the comments today from Chief Moore and Deputy Chief Malinowski that there's just a fundamental misunderstanding about what this letter is speaking about. It's not about monetizing these products. That does raise issues of conflicts of interest within the university and by Professor Brantingham when he's evaluating his own programs, which clearly he cannot be doing in an unbiased way. But it's also about the ethics of the research, as the letter says. It's about grave methodological problems that naturalize racist practices and the data that result from those practices. And it's about, and as I said, it's about these conflicts of interest. We've seen at Ohio State University and Duke massive conflicts of interest where university administrations have overlooked bad data in order to earn money for the university.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Charlotte, I'm a graduate student at UCLA as well. As Josh said, it's not just a conflict of interest of the person who's producing the product, also evaluating the product. There are many other academic concerns about predictive policing, or location-based policing, or precision policing. Cathy O'Neill, who is a Harvard-trained mathematician, data scientist, and has worked as a professor and hedge fund analyst, provided this statement. Precision policing is stipulated on the assumption that we have crime data. We don't. Instead, we have arrest data and reports of crime data, both of which are poor proxies for crime. Most crimes are not reported, and most crimes do not lead to an arrest.
Exactly.
So we are working with a massively flawed data set, with a lot of missing data. And that missing data is not equally distributed. For drug crimes, certain profiled people in neighbourhoods, specifically poor, black neighbourhoods, are much more likely to be scrutinised for criminal behaviour, and thus more likely to end up arrested. The algorithms, of course, don't know about the missing data. They are going with incomplete data, thinking it's a perfect representation of crime. And in particular, they look for hotspots for crime and send police to places that produce crime, i.e. arrests, which then predict and produce more crime. When you consider unequal missing data problems, We see a feedback loop. The places that have data get more data, and the places that have missing data will continue to miss data, because the police are not sent there. So as you can see, there is not wholehearted scientific stamp of approval on this type of policing practice. And there's a huge debate going on in academia, which I don't think has been fully reviewed by the team who provided you with the information earlier.
Wow.
My name is Elizabeth Hudson, and I am also a graduate student at UCLA. Today I'll be reading comments by Professors Jeffrey Fagan and Bernard Hartwell of Columbia University. There's deep academic criticism of the quote-unquote PredPol, predictive policing software that the LAPD is considering. Rather than predict crime, these tools predict policing, instantiating its errors and biases of the most heavily policed communities. As such, PredPol replicates rather than corrects for racial inequalities and inefficiencies of policing. Tools like PredPol, in essence, multiply patterns of policing errors and biases, while offering only minimal gains for public safety. It is nearly impossible to scrub race from predicted analytics, given its dependence on historically biased data. The recent detailed audit by LAPD Inspector General Smith sounds an alarm about the negative effects of predictive policing on crime reporting at police stations and at the edges of crime zones, further weakening the public safety returns from policing. These authors detail many of their concerns about predictive policing in their research.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Levinson. I'm another PhD student from UCLA. I'm here to read portions of a 5-page testimony that was submitted last night by Sunita Patel, Curtis Skinner, and Alicia Garani, all from UCLA School of Law. Sunita Patel is an assistant professor of law and faculty director of the Veteran Legal Clinic, and she teaches civil rights and police litigation. So their testimony reflects their views and not any position on behalf of the entire school. So they write, we respectfully submit the following testimony regarding predictive policing in Los Angeles. The LAPD uses two types of place-based predictive policing, which we find deeply unsettling and worth halting. PredPol and the Los Angeles and Laser, these programs use prior crime and arrest data by geographic area to provide officers with heat maps or hotspots. Police departments make patrol decisions based on such data. PredPol focuses on vehicle-related crimes while Laser focuses on gun-related crimes. Our testimony primarily raises three concerns. A. PredPol and Laser are math-washed or tech-washed racial profiling. B. Flawed data should not be used as a basis to predict criminal activity. And C. Predictive policing runs against the general trend in Los Angeles County of non-punitive approaches to crime prevention and the general acceptance that individuals can and do rehabilitate. I'm just skipping to their conclusion. Given the strong concerns raised by the public, the Office of Inspector General and others, we counsel the Commission to eliminate the use of PredPol and study the consequences of eliminating Operation Laser. With the many law enforcement investigative tools available to the LAPD, it should abandon one's lacking public support and criticize for sweeping countless individuals into harmful policing dragnets. The Commission's role is one of oversight. The Commission can no longer ignore the pressing concerns that new era predictive policing only reinforces the same sorts of racially biased policing that have plagued Black and Latinx communities since the dawn of modern policing. Thank you.
Jessica Catalino, Dr. Jemima Pierre, and Jody Schofield.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dr. Jessica Catalino, and I'm Associate Professor of Anthropology at UCLA. And I've published on policing, and today I come here to speak as a scholar and a citizen. In 2016, several UCLA anthropologists co-organized an international symposium on racialized state violence in global perspective. We heard from experts and about persistent patterns of racialized state violence in societies that include our own. At that event and beyond, one thing is clear as a bell. There is no academic consensus in favor of predictive policing. Indeed, there's extensive criticism in the scholarly literature, in law, mathematics, and social sciences, for example. Criticism for reasons that include the tendency of predictive policing to harden the biases that characterize not only policing but our other institutions in our society, and indeed to expand those biases through, for example, increased arrests. This morning, the academic literature has been invoked, but the scope of literature that's been cited is inadequate. And even the study by the National Academy of Sciences that was mentioned expresses its concern in its very title of its own press release that, quote, there is insufficient evidence on role of racial bias, end quote. The chair of that study said, quote, the committee felt that the lack of data on the role of racial bias in proactive policing was startling, and that it's critically important that we understand not simply the impacts of proactive policing on racial outcomes, but also how race may impact the adoption of specific types of proactive policing, end quote. I refer you to the Inspector General report, page 26, which cites 2 published studies that evaluate predictive policing. Please see footnote number 36, which lists the titles of these publications and the journals in which they were published, but not the author. The author of those published studies that evaluate PredPol was my colleague Jeff Brantingham, who is also Chief of R&D at PredPol. I welcome the application of scholars' research to pressing social issues, but it shouldn't be evaluated by the very...
Thank you.
Is this available on the website? Or, I mean, you distribute it to us, we'll put it out, but are you going to put it out on your website for people here who haven't been able to see it? Go ahead.
It's going to be on the website, on the meeting page, so let's move on.
All right.
Stop disrupting the meeting.
My name is Dr. Janina Pierre, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Anthropology and the Department of African American Studies at UCLA. I'm here to express my concern about the LAPD's intentions to deploy predictive policing technologies. One of the claims is that the deployment of PredPol is that its positive effects are consistent with academic literature. I would like to challenge this claim by saying what is more consistent with the academic literature is how significant race is for the U.S. and how it shapes where we live, where we go to school, how much we are policed or how we are not policed. I'd like to make 3 specific points concerning about PredPol concerning race, ethics, and profits. First, regarding race, PredPol is said to depend on historic crime data. However, what constitutes crime? How would PredPol determine white-collar violence or domestic violence? How is it that this crime always seems to point to communities living in racially segregated and over-policed micro-hotspots? Second, regarding ethics, how is it that the city is willing to dispense funds towards private venture by a UCLA professor that ends up increasing police presence in over-policed black and brown communities when members of these black and brown communities are underrepresented at UCLA? This is an ethical question. Where academic knowledge by a UCLA professor targets a community that cannot access UCLA? Third, regarding profits, PredPol is a for-profit company whose raw material is poor black and brown people. Yes. We are not just talking about surveillance, we are talking about extraction and dividends paid to a white scholar and a white company for the transformation of black and brown communities into data for profit. PredPol's activities are based in racist assumptions about crime and communities of color, unethical and immoral treatment of members of the LA community, and finally, white profits from black and brown bodies. It's a predatory policing program that should be dismissed and disbanded.
Good morning. I've stood here many times and listened to you guys for the last 3 years, particularly you, Mr. Silverhawk. You guys are talking about building trust with the community. How can we trust you if you're killing us? I'm a student at UCLA. I'm a graduate student. I'm a PhD looking at social welfare. One of my jobs is to go into Twin Towers and look at the results of what you guys are doing. It's ridiculous. Predictive policing needs to be shut down. We can predict policing as it stands. Policing is predictable in that it will kill black and brown communities, members of these communities. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Shut it down. Shut it down! Shut it down!
Courtney Eccles, Hamid Khan, and Jamie Garcia.
Agreeable, spiritual. Yes.
So I'm with the South LAPD Spine Coalition, and I'm also a PhD student in Criminology, Law, and Society at UC Irvine.
Another one.
And I just want to address a few things regarding the science on these programs.
Excellent.
More love to tout research and academic literature. Let me stress a point that others alluded to earlier. The only two known empirical studies assessing predictive policing where the researcher was not monetarily invested in a particular outcome of the study found that predictive policing programs increased enforcement, but actually had little impact on the reduction of crime. And then regarding precision policing, just a few things that the LAPD won't tell you, and the reason why Moore could not answer the question regarding the academic literature on precision policing is because there is no academic literature on precision policing, and there is no scientific independent evidence supporting this strategy. And in fact, to this point, precision policing was created by Bill Bratton and first implemented during his stint as NYPD Police Commissioner in 2014. And he was also the former Chief of Police of LAPD and is now working with the LAPD to implement it here. One, that's what criminologists would refer to as a conflict of interest. Second, precision policing emerged in New York City in response to the Black Lives Matter demonstrations around the murder of Eric Garner. Third, it emphasizes even more data collection and surveillance and under the guise of community policing. Four, according to the NAACP, who by the way filed a lawsuit in New York around precision policing, and I quote, disguised as precision policing, the NYPD executes military-style gang takedowns that target low-income communities of color across New York City. Prior to executing these mass arrests, the NYPD conducts criminal investigations relying in part on a secret database that designates thousands of New Yorkers as members of gangs or local street crews with limited due process protections. 99% of the individuals in the NYPD's gang database are people of color, end quote. Sounds a whole hell of a lot like the list.
Speaker, please.
Let's be clear.
Next speaker is Hamid Khan.
Mr. Khan.
Continuing the harm is always inflicted on
Thank you.
throughout communities, now under the guise of precision policing.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm not done, shut up. I'm not. No, more about the mic for like a freaking hour. I'm listing names of people that were murdered.
It's your last warning.
That were murdered by LAPD in Laser Zone.
So I'm going to ask you to leave the meeting, or I'm going to recess the meeting.
Can you walk in courthouse now?
Are you going to leave, or are we going to recess?
What are we saying? Shut it down! Precision policing! Shut it down!
Go ahead, sister. Ain't no power like the power of the...
The next speaker, Hamid Khan, followed by Jamie Garcia and...
So, a lot has been already said, so let's talk about the spin.
She needs to leave the meeting. I've asked her to leave the meeting.
Wow.
You didn't ask her to leave the meeting.
Leave her alone. Leave her alone.
Go ahead.
It's an illegal meeting anyway, sober off. You didn't post online. Leave her alone. We're with you.
Here we go.
Look, here they go again.
That's right. On the local news.
Okay, next speaker, please. Want to start the clock?
Okay, Mr. Khan.
So, a lot has been said, and of course, if they have even this much of shame, they will shut it down. But of course they're shameless. We know where they come from. But let's talk about how the meeting started off with this guy, Mr. Frankenstein himself, Mark Smith. He starts casting a doubt and making a mockery about people's response. I wonder when people get things on ballot and they come from the same source and they gather signatures, if he'll have the audacity to tell the state assembly that fuck, it's coming from the same source, it's identical. I wonder when people sign petitions and get thousands of signatures coming from the same source, if he'd have the fucking audacity to come back and say this is identical. But it's only when people are speaking out about this motherfucking department that this asshole has to come back and say it's coming from the identical sources. Shame on you. Shame on you. And let's go to what the chief has been saying about how you sanitize all this bullshit that we talk about. It's always evolving. This fucking place has been evolving since 1869. The last 150 years, this goddamn department has been evolving. It was evolving, and this guy, Arcos, talks about much better design. Weed and Seed was a much better design. Operation Hammer was a much better design. Broken Windows was a much better design. Suspicious activity reporting was much better design. Predictive policing is much better design. That's their fucking design that they talk about. But they don't have the audacity to seek the truth. You are not going to stay on this commission we're telling you, Neil Bonner. They're going to kick your ass out. Because you are asking questions. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be a rubber stamping body. You're supposed to be a rubber stamping body. But if you have anything, what all of the academics, all of the folks have said is that this is fundamentally flawed by design. You can twist it, you can give it a different name, you can do whatever, it'll still bring up the same results. It's still going to quarantine black and brown bodies, it's still about it's about expropriating bodies, it's about displacing people. So
Next speaker, please.
Shut the goddamn
The next speaker, Jamie Garcia.
Followed by Clint Blakely, Kai Utsumi, and Elizabeth Parks Kibbe.
So let's take it back to 2016, Gladys and Sixth at LA Can, where folks like Craig, Eddie H., Lydia Trejo, Kay Utsumi, where we sat together and we said predictive policing. So this is the new spin. But this isn't just about predictive policing. Well, one thing I want to step back is that that group of people, we built this power. We built this power to challenge you all. We built this power to show you all what the hell was going on.
Right.
But this isn't just about predictive policing. This isn't just about shutting down predictive policing. This is about shutting down policing. And more, you raised the question, and I saw that. You wanted to legitimize your presence in the community. You want to legitimize that you are the one that provides safety. And what you're realizing right now, and what we're seeing, is that you're realizing that that legitimacy is crumbling. It's crumbling. And people are asking different questions. People are imagining different things. And we have academics here, we have, countless other people here that are giving you facts about predictive policing. But again, it's not just about predictive policing, because when we shut it down, and we do shut down predictive policing, we will not be shut down. We will be here the next day after the next day until policing nationwide, countrywide is shut down. We don't want policing anymore. And then you wanted pragmatic solutions. You wanted rational solutions, because apparently we are all here and we're irrational because we're challenging policing, because this is about policing. Rational solutions, they're right here. We have them all. More hospitals, more schools, more housing, more food. Those are the things that we want. And those are the things that you protect. We talked about real estate. We talked about land. Those are the things that you protect. We don't want those things protected anymore. We want our...
The next speaker, please.
Your legitimacy is being questioned. This is about policing.
Thank you.
This is about
Next speaker, please.
policing. We will not stop
Please,
until it's all over.
please stop. You can come back on another verbal comment.
Shut down.
So I want to start my comment by asking a question actually to the Commission. So we've heard a lot about
Let's start the clock again, my mistake.
All right. So I want to ask a question to the Commission about a packet that was not available back there. We've heard a lot about the 819 emails that the Commission received in the past 2 weeks, not one of which expressed support for data-driven policing. Why was that packet, which was posted online, not available in physical form back there? No reason? Okay. Well, I mean, that was we had a 26-page packet that was the Inspector General's report from March 8th. We've all already read that, so I think this other one would have been more important. And but I don't find it surprising that he didn't include it, because it was a searing indictment of racist LAPD practices. So I'm calling you to include all the literature in physical form back there. All right. When a policy is rotten at its core, no amount of amendments or reform can set it straight. The laser and pred pol programs are rotten at their core. They are symptoms of white supremacy and will only result in the intimidation, incarceration, and murder of black and brown folks. These programs are not supported by academic research, as we've heard, and their racial bias will not be removed by reform. You can reduce the area of these hotspots, make them micro hotspots, but they will still be located in over-policed black and brown neighborhoods and will not change the over-policing of these neighborhoods. To use Chief Moore's words, I want to call on you all to absolutely throw the baby out with the bathwater if it is a racist, rotten, and murderous baby. End pred pol, end laser, shut it down.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Throw out the murderous baby.
Protective policing, laser is flawed from the beginning. Shut it down. Why? Because it was conceived and promoted and put into effect by the LAPD itself without outside community input. So it's all authoritarian LAPD that goes back to, like the man said, it goes back to the 1800s. But in my limited knowledge, I only know about the racist Chief Parker. Chief Parker was a white supremacist racist to the core that they named his police station after. And then Daryl Gates, the racist, and this LAPD still has a whole lot, it retains a lot of that racism. That racism resulted in a lot of protests. Also, the Watts Rebellion, 1968. Okay? It was a rebellion against the LAPD and other things, like white supremacists and looking down at poor black and white people. And the LA Rebellion of 1992 also was a racist, against racist policing, and that policing still continues. I have talked to black women who told me how the police treated black during all in the occupation. That kind of treatment still continues today. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Elizabeth Parks-Kibbe, followed by Paula Miner, Tina Kranko, and General Jeff.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Parks-Kibbe. I'm a lifelong Los Angeles resident. I am here because I care about the people of Los Angeles. I care about the police of Los Angeles, and I care enough to shut this down. I cannot speak to what it means to be part of a black and brown community that is systemically criminalized. What I can speak of is my own experience. I've tried lifting up data from other points, and it's usually unsuccessful in these forums, so I'll try a different tack. I went to private school in Los Angeles. I was the victim of many crimes that went underreported, not unreported, but underreported and absolutely unpoliced. Chief Moore, are you listening? I went on after NYU to become a civilian investigator for the Civilian Complaint Review Board in New York. I care very much about policing, and I see the necessity for it in our communities. I then became a public educator, a mother, and a local Los Angeles business owner in that order. I have even personal ties to people on this commission for whom I have compassion, because I know what it means to be a bureaucrat who is challenged by systems that were designed to hurt people and are difficult to reform. I would like to answer, well, there's several points that I would like to make. First of all, I drove over an hour to be here today. I suggest to many of you in this crowd, policemen, officers, chief, commissioners, and members of the public, to listen to the academics and also a podcast, which is easier to digest than a dissertation, sir, by a podcast called Data Skeptic. The date is June 23rd, 2016. It features Christian Loom, who is the lead statistician of the human rights.
Next speaker, you can come back during public comment. We have more public comment, and you can fill out a card, and then come back and then complete. Thank you.
I'll send a letter. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
I hope you appreciate the fact that we did have comments today from the academic community, because we know the commission, particularly Mr. Soberoff, demeans the group of people that come every week, demeans Stop LAPD Spying, that does research, that does work, that has said most of what's been said today for years, absolutely for years. The words that we hear today are words that are associated with LAPD, a flawed system, racial bias, lack of transparency. You know, Black Lives Matter comes here and uses those same terms when we're talking about officer-involved shootings. But these terms also are applied when we talk about policing, whether smart policing, predictive policing, or what the young lady said, predatory policing. I hope the commission listens. It's so important. From Black Lives Matter perspective, we think PredPol should be stopped. We know how it ends up. We know who is mostly suffering from these efforts. We know where those hot spots are. When I looked at one of the recommendations that Chief Moore made about if people call 911, then after their call, someone will call and try to present them with a survey to talk about how did you like what happened. Give us your comments on what happened. When a person calls 911, you know that is absolutely the very last thing they want to do. You know that they are extremely desperate and do not want to be surveyed to find out if your predicting policing policy was good or bad. So, again, I join with my colleagues, I join with academia to say, shut it down. We know what happens. The next step will be adding more to officer-involved shootings like
They're the worst time.
Back during public comment. Jeff?
So I say, shut it down! Shut it down!
Now, as long as you keep it to the
Hi,
order,
my name is
what you do
Tina.
now
I just wanted to
today,
draw our attention
or
one more
next.
time to the OIG report, because I think the language of
What
it
you do
is
is
really
everything.
important. Specifically, the motives behind laser and the choice of the word laser as the title of the program. The basic premise, this is page 4 of the OIG report. The basic premise is to target with laser-like precision the violent repeat offenders and gang members who commit crimes in the specific target areas. The program is analogous to laser surgery, where a trained medical doctor uses modern technology to remove tumors and improve eyesight. Later on it says, plans are then developed to remove offenders from the area with minimal invasiveness and minimal harm to people in the areas around them. This is a mandate for murder, and let me explain
Keep
why.
it up, Nella.
Chief Moore, you mentioned earlier that you have an interest in building, quote, a relationship-building posture with the community. And when you create a program and sustain a program, divesting public funds away from education, away from affordable housing, away from programs that people actually need, you create a situation in which you arm already nervous officers. And I'm looking at the officers who are lining this room. People who are already have their heart rates up because you're confronting situations that are already high stakes. And you give them financially biased, unsubstantiable pseudoscience to justify violent interventions in communities of color. And these interventions result in the murder of community members like Rashario Mack, who needed help and healing, and not a salvo of bullets, which is what he ultimately got. So I don't understand how any of you can sit there comfortably knowing that the consequence of a program like this is a bullet hitting someone's body. People's lives are at stake here. We're not just talking about watching people, we're talking about people's lives.
Here, here.
Good morning, my name is General Jeff Skid Row, Crenshaw District. Bonner Veteran. As far as, another presentation, last time there was some inexperienced representatives, and now you've got LAPD brass. It's still the same thing, it's extremely vague, there's no depth, there's no substance, it's just, we're pretending like it's something new. LAPD, this is not nothing new. LAPD's been using data for decades. Let's take, for instance, in the 80s. Everybody remember the Batarang? That was when there was crack houses and dope houses all throughout the hood. And LAPD, identified, located, and generated all the data, and then ran the Batarang up into people's houses, sometimes the wrong houses. But it was data back then. So it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff here. 2 + 2 is 4. And all this report is saying we're going to substitute the first 2 with the second 2, and then we're going to switch the second 2 with the first 2. All we're saying is it's still 2 + 2 is 4. It's still the same fucking math. This is nothing new. What the hell are y'all presenting to the people to try to justify it? There's absolutely nothing there. And so, we appreciate the fact that the new commissioners are demanding more information from the department, because they're not just going to sign off on something that's basically just going to put bullseyes on the backs of blacks and brown kids and families all throughout this city. When we look at, when they talk about location-based policing, I'm concerned. I'm a Skid Row community activist. Are you saying location? Because Skid Row is going to be policed different from the San Fernando Valley, is going to be policed different from South Central Los Angeles. What does that even mean? When you talk about precision, what precision are you talking about? Because with 4 million people in this city and 10,000 officers, the core principle of LAPD has always been uphold the law through intimidation and fear tactics. So how in the hell are you going to focus in terms of talking about building trust through public safety when you're intimidating and fearing people, causing trauma? It doesn't work.
George Fazzetti, Erica Ferriston, and Ian Jameson.
So we're supposed to have law enforcement here, huh? So yesterday I go up online, and for the first time your agenda's missing, sober oppo, L idiots, L lawbreakers. Are you familiar with AB 2257, all you idiots, so-called lawbreakers, and Orwellian, opposite of protect to serve, reverence for the law, quality, respect, service, and integrity? This is an illegal meeting! And to make sure you know that, I have my official letter here, so all of you know that they have to respond in 30 days.
Mr. President, the Speaker's off
topic. Anything that happens here is out of order.
Let's go on topic, please.
This is on topic. This is your OIG. You're supposed to pay attention to this stuff, dummy. Don't you follow the law, OIG? Are you sober up? Because your secretary yesterday told me all I gotta do is put it out there.
The Speaker's
and Mr. Herman went checking there's only 3 copies. Shut up!
Disrupting the meeting.
I'm not disrupting the... Okay, I'll sit down. Now you can't throw me out, fool. And here's the shit up. Prove it.
Erica Ferriston.
Oh, I abused the paper.
That's what you drive people to do.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erica Ferriston. This is my first time at a police commission hearing. I think you can probably gather, since I'm coming from the community, I'm going to have the same line as every single other member in this community has had, which is basically shut it down. I come from the west side, from Brentwood. I think if you look out, you'll see you've got young people, old people, students, white people, black people, brown people. We are the community, and I love all these quotes up here. And it says, in service to our communities. I'm telling you, as a representative from the west side, we want this shut down. While there are claims that this is unbiased, Precision policing is just the latest iteration of historical racist policing tactics that seek to control, contain, incarcerate, and displace people. And I'll speak for myself, I really appreciate you, Mr. Bonner, for all the questions that you've asked. I really think that you are sitting here and listening, and I hope that all of you are really listening to the community that we are supposed to be serving here. We don't want this. And I also invite, every Wednesday for over a year, people in this community have been gathering and forming a circle of support for the family members whose children, whose loved ones have been killed by law enforcement. You don't need papers and studies. Over 512 people in 5 years have been killed by law enforcement in Los Angeles County. This isn't working. Please continue to do the work to investigate on your own the truth and shut it down.
Shut it down!
So the UCLA academics have done a masterful job of dispelling the myth that anyone in academia thinks that predictive policing works. I would just like to make a general statement about the state of policing in 2019 and the use of data. Prior to last year with the passage of SB 1421 and AB 748, which allowed Californians to access law enforcement officer personnel records and to get body cam footage of critical incidents released within 45 days of the critical incidents. We didn't have access to any of that. We do not have a national registry for people who are killed by law enforcement, which is why we get those statistics aggregated by newspapers like The Guardian. I just want to repeat, our federal government does not require law enforcement agencies to report how many people they kill. So
yes,
you guys have this mountain of data on us based on racial profiling and based on over-enforcement of low-level offenses. You have all of that data with which to police us to death, literally to death, and we don't know shit about you. And it should be the other way around because you menace our constitutional rights and you have the power to kill us. So we are going to continue to demand transparency and we are going to continue to demand that you shut down this wholly ineffective, universally reviled, fucking awful program. Shut it down.
Next speaker, Reverend, followed by Jonathan Foster and Reverend Dr. Mello Josiah.
All right, Mello.
That's always good to know. Quickly,
Do it, Mello.
there were two violent acts, I think, that happened. I don't have to go over all the facts. I'm glad the facts are already talked about. But I want to talk about the violent acts that happened. One, overall, your racist ass hurt this person talking to you about his own mental health journey. He was telling you his own mental health journey. And you missed it. You know how hard it is for someone traveling and suffering with mental health to stand anywhere to talk to anybody? And you would do that to him?
Right.
And you want to give more resources to police to interact with these type of communities? You missed it. The second violent act is Bonner. They're going to come for you. You are black, and I think you realize you are black situated in white liberalism.
Yeah.
I think you saw that, and I think it scared you. When the chief busted his shoulders up in front of you, you aren't a black liberal anymore. Be careful. This white lady sitting next to you have the audacity in front of cameras. Tell them, go find facts. Go write up facts. Something's gotta, don't make it up. This is a former prosecutor.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Effortlessly. Take that and go fuck yourself with it.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Foster. I acknowledge the 98% excellent service and 2% that's gross, and that's about all we can talk about is what's gross. And so the old chronic offender program was a spiral notebook. Remember they put that out and two officers would talk about what they had written down? That's still got problems. Where is the possibility for a person to grow and change, and where is the forgiveness in a repeat offender if they're getting constantly beat down by the cops? However, the improper use of a repeat offender program has every problem you've been cracked for. A public service done in private. To know things about the public, the citizen has to sue. They have to spend money and enrich a judge who gets 90% of his salary in retirement to find out information that should be all public, or to end programs that you or I or us would think and feel that the police wouldn't want anything to do with. Without a lawsuit, we're going to continue with programs. They were going to continue with these programs that a lawsuit are detracting from the value of police, what they can be, what their role truly is. These programs have harmed potential public trust and the good name of the LAPD. Goldsmith, got your head down. About the root causes of crime is right next to you, the dude that doesn't pay anybody. People subscribing to someone else a low wage, and then people are left with less than they need. And then hitting children throughout their life and speaking belittlement to the child also causes some people to be involved in crime. And Jesus, that would be a great thing, is taking Jesus out of here is the root cause of crime. Goldsmith, you wouldn't know anything about that. So making people in the United States of America pay for a temple in Israel so they can chop off a bull's head is what the problem is.
Greetings. My name is Reverend Dr. Mello Desire, and born and raised in Watts, but more importantly dealing with the disenfranchised. They said enough already. I'm not going to repeat how predictive programming sucks. They've been telling us that we've been 11% of the population, but 54% of the crimes. And who are the ones that do the statistics? Are humans. So when you keep feeding data, and you don't have any foundation for that data, it's the same Census Bureau people who also smoke weed and knock on the doors, and when they're tired, they miss about 1 million black people for the census. This is 2010. And now we're in 2019, so we're still supposed to believe the same data? Our goal is to work with the department and to help improve communication between relationships, work towards changing the culture and dialogue between LAPD and the inner city. We want to know about your new programs and your goals for the department, as well as how helping to stop gang violence. Help you help our kids. The last thing you said, Soberoff, is that you want to help. So Arias Ashtagan, who was our leader, who was everything to us, who did things that Mark Ridley Thomas and Garcetti, who stood behind you, were crocodile tears, saying how saddened we are of his death, but they did not put our tax money where it's supposed to be. He took his $1 million and he was too strong. He didn't sign the deal, so he was too strong. Without government help, you had to take him out. So you hired Eric Holder to take him out. I just want to work with you, Soberoff, to complete what you said in the press release April 3rd. If you're really about gang violence, then the emails that Mark Ridley Thomas and his pit bull Kathleen Austria denied, we asked for $10,000 in the resource center since 2010. And I'm not even talking about Garcetti and homeless. We're saying put your money where your mouth is. Our money where your mouth is. Then we can believe anything you say. Any other comment points on this item,
What I'd like to do is go over, summarize.
That's as good as you ever been,
There will be a
Mello.
motion to approve the
That
action.
was as good as you've ever been.
What amendments there would be, subject to quarterly reporting, information sharing. Commissioner?
That was great.
There were a number of things suggested. I hope I wasn't responsible for keeping track of all of them, but they certainly included, if there were any replacement of an underbase program, that it would come before the commission before enactment, that
academic or external review of these programs include and address the original questions we asked the Inspector General to address. If that's not possible, that the Inspector General address them in a separate report and that he review any academic reports that's produced on behalf of the Commission as well. That the manual be brought to the subcommittee for review before implementation. What else? And the community, I appreciated the dialogue about the community survey, and that when we're understanding, this is Commissioner Bonner's confirmation, when we're understanding the impact that these programs have on communities, that they include the impact on trust and the impact on other people who may have been swept up in this process or other innocent people, and that the community surveys in particular target the communities that are most directly impacted by these policing strategies to understand their perception and the impact that it's having on them. Commissioner Bonner, were there additional things? And I believe Commissioner...
I think my questions at this point are maybe procedural in the sense that we need all of that information and probably some more in order to approve a report. So I see the agenda with or calls the question as to whether we should be approving the department's report, which I'm not in a position to do today, absent we're asking for. So that's really the clarification I think that we need as to whether the sense of the Commission is to receive additional information and input and then reconsider the report, or whether it's the intention to vote on the report as it is today.
Commissioner Goldsmith, I did ask for the department to work with the subcommittee to provide additional information regarding the data, both that supports the effectiveness of the crime fighting program that they have put forward, as well as indicating how they're going to measure its effectiveness to the community and lack of disparate treatment to the community.
I'm going to move to recommend for the board's action the approval of the Inspector General's report. Number 2, to review the review of the Inspector General's report, and 3, approve the department's report with the amendments as stated by Commissioner Goldsmith.
What does that mean in terms of approve the department's report? I mean, we've got it.
The department will begin the programs and will begin to and continue to evaluate the programs, provide information that we will not be shutting down the programs.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
The programs you don't understand?
By, for, and of the people.
Mr. President, my procedural question is that the agenda says to approve the department's report, but there are no recommendations, I think, in the department's report. Isn't it just review, much like the number 2 on our agenda? I'm not sure what we're approving. I think we're approving the Inspector General's report. Is that not correct?
Well, it says...
Doesn't have a procedure.
The department's report indicates a recommended action that the Commission review and approve the report. If you do not wish to approve it, you can review the report. Since it does not have specific recommendations as you indicated, what I would suggest is that as part of a formal motion, that you would encapsulate the 3 reports, review those that you want to review and approve those that you want to approve, and then direct the department to work with the subcommittee to come back with the information that Commissioner Goldsmith asked for, Commissioner Bonner asked for, and you asked for, Commissioner, and then bring that report back to the Commission when that report is concluded.
There we go.
With the additional information that you've asked for. There is, according to the department, and I will repeat what I heard them say, there is no chronic offender bulletin program working today. That program is not working. Laser is not working.
Thank you.
The Treadpole program, they are looking at reevaluating how they are going to implement that program. So that's the status of where we are today. And so my recommendation to you is to have the department report to the subcommittee in a more working type session and bring those recommendations back for the information you've asked for today. That would be the most efficient.
This is an illegal meeting. That'd be funny.
So we're all ready to go.
So as a department,
he's head of the department.
To review, approve this. Obviously, the department's going to come back with the requested information, work with the subcommittee, and then take the follow-up actions available to you. I have the list of those, and as well as the circulation of how in the Office of Operations will demonstrate an accountability relative to the instructions provided with the use of the manual, the strategies, how they would be implemented, and how we're going to evaluate that on an ongoing basis to ensure adherence. It's really, from a procedural standpoint, the department's actions will continue unless there's direction from this committee, from this commission differently. And this is more parliamentary as to what you're going to do with this report.
That's why you need to table it.
So I don't want to be clear, there will not be a shutdown of this or a change in that training you would be.
Correct. That is correct. That is not on the
That's my
agenda.
question. I don't know if it's on the agenda.
Monica President.
So do you want to separate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would move approval of the Inspector General's report.
Of course you
We have a second?
And I guess, well, so I think that's probably, I don't know what we're amending, yeah, so I guess we could incorporate all the amendments we've all laid out into that report. I don't know if that's probably the most simplest thing to do. Right, all the questions we raised and the additional report backs we want would go along with the approval of the Inspector General's report.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Community.
Okay. Is that 4-0? Okay. Okay. Number 2? We've reviewed the Inspector General's report. Okay. Number 3 is approving the department's report.
And can we amend that to be just reviewing the department?
Okay, so we can receive and file and request the information that we request. Okay?
We already have.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Receive.
What I would suggest is you could make the motion to receive and file the department's report, instruct the department to report back on those items that were enumerated.
Yes.
Okay.
Ditto what?
Motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I add to that, there are a number of concerns raised about the flawed data, and I would like a deeper understanding of that in a subsequent report about upon what basis the data is derived and directly addressing the critiques that have been raised in terms of the flawed data that under reporting of crime in certain areas, leading to fewer arrests in certain areas, and how that drives the predictive policing process and concentration of resources in certain neighborhoods.
Okay. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, 4-0.
Okay.
Go to item number
All right.
2B, the verbal report.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Our chains.
Now watch all the boys go run and hide as usual. Bunch of high-paid sheep with no ethics. Wow. Look at all the money being wasted in this trash pit, huh? Hey, dudes, it's an illegal meeting. I know. How many are lawyers here, huh?
The gang is coming down. The gang is unraveling.
It is, brother. Mark.
I'll get my
You brought in the dinner. With all the cameras. Don't get dinner, dude.
They shut down the meeting.
Might as well sit here, they gotta come back in again.
Are they coming back?
Herman!
Come back.
Herman! Oh no, it's an illegal messenger! It's an illegal meeting, so it doesn't matter anyway! But they're backing up, Herman! They don't know what to do! Oh no, what do we do? Hell, I'm just burning up battery and chip.